Hello, and welcome back to the book club. This is the Hidden Door Book Club. My name is Melissa.
My name is Julian. Hello.
Uh, we're continuing today with our reading of Pride and Prejudice
Yes.
um, and discussion, reading and discussion of the book. So let's get started.
Okay.
Uh, we'll continue with now chapter 4.
Okay. Do you want me to start from this one or do you want to continue?
Who was the one who was reading before? We always
Mm,
switch per chapter. Were you the one reading before?
yes, I think I finished the last one.
Okay, I'll read this one then.
Okay.
Chapter 4. When Jane and Elizabeth were alone, the former, who had been cautious in her praise of Mr. Bingley before, expressed to her sister how very much she admired him. He is just what a young man ought to be, she said. Sensible, good humored, lively, and I've never saw such happy manners, so much ease, with such perfect good breeding. I, I always love how polite they are, you know,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's like you can tell that even though like you can hear the polite and you can also hear the undercurrent even in a time like ours when we don't speak like this in our brains automatically we're saying like, oh my gosh, I love this guy. you know
That's good writing.
you know
Yes.
I like that it translates the feeling. He's also handsome, replied Elizabeth, which a young man out of likewise I'm sorry, what was I? Which a young man ought likewise to be if he possibly can. His character is thereby complete. I love how his handsomeness is part of his character.
Yeah. So if you're not handsome, then there's a flaw in your character. You
Clearly, that
should
is
try
a
to be.
character flaw.
Yeah.
Well, I think in the past, a lot of people did think that your appearance kind of illustrated to who you were because I've
Yeah.
read many books where, like, they say, like, his august appearance, trying to refer to, like, aristocracy.
Hmm.
And so someone of good breeding had a certain look, and it was kind of
The
automatically associated. I
yeah,
don't know if they meant inbreeding look, but whatever.
the good breeding term, it's funny to me because right now we use that only talking about animals, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, it did turn out into pretty,
yeah,
let's say, not the best ideas in eugenics.
exactly.
Okay. I was very much flattered by his asking me to dance a second time. I did not expect such a compliment. Did you not? Uh, did not you? I did for you, but that is one great difference between us. Compliments always take you by surprise, and me never. What could be more natural than his asking you again? He could not help seeing that you were about 5 times as pretty as every other woman in the room. Not thanks to his gallantry for that. Well, he certainly is very agreeable, and I give you leave to like him. You have liked many a stupid person. Dear Lizzie, you're a great deal too apt, to like people in general. You never see a fault in anybody, and the world are good and agreeable in your eyes. I never heard you speak ill of a human being in my life. I love how she's saying this like it's a really bad thing.
Yeah, like it's clearly important to
Have the
make sure.
discernment,
Yeah,
you know,
but I think
which
that is
in a
important.
way is true.
Hmm.
It's just that, I mean, the only problem there always ends up being that you're always going to be limited by your own filters in your brain and what you think is correct about someone or the assumptions that you're making about someone.
Of
So,
course.
I mean, it's a very good idea to have some discernment about people, but at the same time, you have to accept that you will be a fool when you are.
Definitely.
I would wish not to be hasty in censoring anyone, but I always speak what I think. I know you do, and it is that which makes me wonder, with your good sense, to be so honestly blind to the follies and nonsense of others. Affectation of candor is common enough. One meets with it everywhere. But to be candid without ostentation or design, to take the good of everybody's character and make it still better and say nothing of the bad belongs to you alone. And so you like this man's sisters too, do you? Their manners are not equal to his. Certainly not, at first. But they are very pleasing women when you converse with them. Miss Bingley is to live with her brother and keep his house. And I'm much mistaken if we shall not find a very charming neighbor in her. Elizabeth listened in silence, but was not convinced. Their behavior at the assembly had not been calculated to please in general. And with more quickness of observation and less pliancy of temper than her sister, and with a judgment too unassailed by any attention to herself, she was very little disposed to approve of them. They were, in fact, very fine ladies, not deficient in good humor when they were pleased, nor in the power of being agreeable where they chose it, but proud and conceited. They were rather handsome, had been educated in one of the first private seminaries in town, had a fortune of £20,000, were in the habit of spending more than they ought to, and of associating with people of rank, and were therefore in every aspect entitled to think well of themselves and meanly of others.
Of course.
Yeah. They were of a respectable family in the north of England, a circumstance more deeply impressed on their memories than that their brother's fortune and their own had been acquired by trade. This, of course, being a very bad thing in this context.
Yeah.
Mr. Bingley inherited property to the amount of nearly £100,000 from his father, who had intended to purchase an estate, but did not live to do it. Mr. Bingley intended it likewise, and sometimes made choice of his county, but as he was not provided with a good house and the liberty of a manor, it was doubtful to many of those who best knew the easiness of his temper whether he might not spend the remainder of his days at Netherfield and leave the next generation to purchase. His sisters were very anxious for his having an estate of his own, but though he was now established only as a tenant, Miss Bingley was by no means unwilling to preside at his table. Nor was Mrs. Hurst, who had married a man of more fashion than fortune, less disposed to consider his house as her home when it suited her. Mr. Bingley had not been of age 2 years when he was of age 2 years, so 2 years after he was of age. I'm not sure when that was at this time.
Okay.
When he was tempted by an accidental recommendation to look at Netherfield House. He did look at it and into it for half an hour, was pleased with the situation and the principal rooms, satisfied with what the owner said in its praise, and took it immediately. It sounds like me in some ways. Sometimes I tend to do the whole "do not buy the first thing you look at" thing.
And then you do.
I always do that. I'm like, oh, look at that. Oh, it's nice. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is what I need.
Yeah,
like, should we check? No, that's fine. Let's go.
And you just trust whatever the seller is saying, even
Mostly,
if it's like. Yeah,
I think it's more related to if it has what I need and I don't want to keep looking.
which is also a very
which has a very
important thing.
large weight for me. It's like, how about
It weighs a lot.
wasting more time on this or just
Yeah.
taking this one thing that already, how about
I
this
think it
other one is
works.
better or maybe it's cheaper?
Yeah.
Maybe, but maybe not. So,
And I don't have the patience to keep looking and
yeah.
comparing. So let's go with the first
And
one.
I like this certainty of I know that I will be able to use this time on something that I want to better than the uncertainty of maybe I will find something that is better or maybe
Hmm.
I will save more money. In many it doesn't mean that it's the better choice in all cases, of course,
And I
but
think in most cases it's not
it
the better choice. But
it tends to win in my head like this.
uh,
The statistical, like my brain is kind of balancing out things and checking what is better, and in my brain it always ends up that way. Like that's the
yeah.
equation that is working with, and that he's like, no, 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 no,
Um,
it's gone.
yeah, the
So
idea that you will use your time better instead of
yeah.
looking for more options and comparing, which is also
With
not always
as
the
another
case,
kind of
but
worms. I kind of like that, but I like that about
the,
Bingley,
hmm,
because Bingley is very clearly very like Jane, he's very predisposed to liking things, to get
hmm,
along, to see the positive and things. Of course, this
yeah,
could be very feeble in many situations, and many would consider that very with very dormatish tendencies.
yeah,
But I like it. If it's a flaw, it is a lovely one in a way,
yeah.
like it could
Though,
be something much worse, like the people who are only finding fault on everything, you know,
true.
to go with the way that they speak.
Yeah, that's a very delicate balance, I'd say. But I think I also prefer being predisposed to like and see the good instead of seeing the bad. I think that's better too.
And it's probably better for those outside,
Of course,
of course,
a lot more.
much more than for the person itself, but still.
Hmm.
Between him and Darcy, there was a very steady friendship, in spite of a great opposition of character. Bingley was endeared to Darcy by the easiness, openness, and ductility of his temper, though no disposition could offer a greater contrast to his own, and though with his own he never appeared dissatisfied. I like that because it's saying like he kind of admires this aspect of his friend that is so very different from himself, but he has no
Hmm.
problem with how he is, right?
Yeah.
On the strength of Darcy's regard, Bingley had the firmest reliance, and of his judgment the highest opinion. In understanding, Darcy was the superior. Bingley was by no means deficient, but Darcy was cleverer. He was at the same time haughty, reserved, and fastidious, and his manners, though well bred, were not inviting. In that respect, his friend had greatly the advantage. Bingley was sure of being well liked whenever he appeared. Darcy was continually giving offense. The manner in which they spoke of the Meryton assembly was sufficiently characteristic. Bingley had never met with pleasanter people or prettier girls in his life. Everybody had been most kind and attentive to him. There had been no formality, no stiffness. He had soon felt acquainted with all the room. So, I mean, it's open and nice, but at the same time, it's a little. It loses the weight, right? If every person is the nicest person, then nobody is, kind of thing.
Yeah. True.
And as to Miss Bennet, he could not conceive an angel more beautiful. Darcy, on the contrary, had seen a collection of people with whom he was, uh, in whom there was little beauty and no fashion, for none of whom he had felt the smallest interest, and for none received either attention or pleasure. Miss Bennet, he acknowledged to be pretty, but she smiled too much. Mrs. Hurst and her sister allowed it to be so, but still they admired her and liked her, and pronounced her to be a sweet girl, and one whom they would not object to know more of. Miss Bennet was therefore established as a sweet girl, and their brother felt authorized by such commendations to think of her as he chose. Like they gave approval, that I'm gonna take that as approval. I like her. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Chapter 5. Within a short walk of Longbourn lived a family with whom the Bennets were particularly intimate. Sir William Lucas had been formerly in trade in Meryton, where he had made a tolerable fortune, and risen to the honor of knighthood by an address to the king during his mayoralty.
Mhm.
I don't know
Mayoralty.
that
He was the
word.
mayor,
Okay,
like the period in which he was the mayor.
mayoralty. So that would be the way to say it. The distinction had, perhaps, been felt too strongly. It had given him a disgust to his business and to his residence in a small market town, and, quitting them both, he had removed with his family to a house about a mile from Meryton, dominated from that period Lucas Lodge, where he could think with pleasure of his own importance, and, unshackled by business, occupy himself solely in being civil to all the world. For, though elated by his rank, it did not render him supercilious. On the contrary, he was all attention to everybody. By nature inoffensive, friendly, and obliging is the correct word.
Hmm.
His presentation at St. James had made him courteous. Lady
Good.
Lucas was a very good kind of woman, not too clever to be a valuable neighbor to Mrs. Bennet. They had several children. The eldest of them, a sensible, intelligent young woman, about 27, was Elizabeth's intimate friend. That the Miss Lucases and the Miss Bennets should meet to talk over a ball was absolutely necessary. And the morning after the assembly brought the former to Longbourn to hear and to communicate. You began the evening well, Charlotte, said Mrs. Bennet with civil self-command to Miss Lucas. You were Mr. Bingley's first choice. Yes, but he seemed to like his second better. Oh, you mean Jane, I suppose, because he danced with her twice. To be sure, that did seem as if he admired her indeed. I rather believe he did. I heard something about it, but I hardly know what. Something about Mr. Robinson. Perhaps you mean what I overheard between him and Mr. Robinson. Did not I mention it to you? Mr. Robinson's asking him how he liked our Meryton assemblies and whether he did not think there were a great many pretty women in the room, and which he thought the prettiest, and his answering immediately to the last question, oh, the eldest, Miss Bennet, beyond a doubt. There cannot be two opinions on that point. Upon my word, well, that was very decided. Indeed, that does seem as if, but however, it may all come to nothing, you know. My overhearings were more to the purpose than yours, Eliza, said Charlotte. Mr. Darcy is not so well worth listening to as his friend, is he? Poor Eliza, to be only just tolerable.
Eliza.
Eliza, okay. I beg you will not put it into Lizzie's head to be vexed by his ill treatment, for he is such a disagreeable man that it would be quite a misfortune to be liked by him. Mrs. Long told me last night that he sat close to her for half an hour without once opening his lips. Yeah, he's definitely not very likable at all.
What would you do in that situation? Because you're very shy.
It's different. I don't think he's a shy person. He's just kind of a prick.
I think he's.
That's not
I
about being
think.
shy.
Yeah.
At least that's what I'm understanding of his character so far. Maybe that
So
will change,
as
but
far as we can tell,
yeah,
he does find himself quite above the company.
uh exactly. So yes, that's different from being a shy person. That is just um, it has difficulties to socialize.
I try to imagine how it would be for me sitting like somewhere and like let's say I just arrived at this assembly. An assembly was like a public ball,
Hmm.
like anyone in the neighborhood, let's say, could go, right?
Yes.
And I wonder how I would manage myself there. And
Well,
you
I
know me,
think
I'm not exactly shy.
yeah,
I
you
mean,
you you
I
wouldn't
like
have.
being by myself, but if I am with people, I'm not afraid of talking. And if I was there sitting next to a person, I would probably end up talking to them at some point.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there's also the whole cultural, societal aspect of it. Being in that society at that time, maybe we would act in a different way. Even
Hmm.
being shy wouldn't be much of uh,
Yeah, who knows? Based
a
on the
way.
expectation, right?
Exactly. Maybe we would been forced to act in certain ways because that's how it was. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
basically,
don't know,
if we
man.
think about it, if you are in the assembly, you're supposed to be interacting with people. Like, why
Hmm.
would you go to a place where you're not planning to socialize when the whole purpose of the
And
place is socializing?
yeah, and also in that same idea, maybe Darcy was shy, but he was being seen as not agreeable because it was not a good thing to be shy because
Yeah,
people expect something from you. So maybe it is true what
exactly.
you're saying. I
Like,
don't know.
there
Maybe.
is also the point of him being like, he's a man
Hmm.
and he's a
He's
man of
supposed to do
means and
this
a
and
gentleman.
yeah,
He's supposed to, so how much of his of the way that he acts with people is in part what he believes, in part what he's trying to portray,
yeah,
instead of whatever he actually is.
yeah.
Who
Because
knows,
there's
right?
we've been reading this about character and how his character is or their
Hmm.
characters are and what people expect the character of someone to be because who they are, where they come from, and all of that. So yeah, maybe their
And of
characters are
course,
not their actual characters. They just showing
not
what
everybody
they.
can be as transparent as Mrs. Bennett here. Oh no, I think someone
Yeah.
mentioned something. I'm not sure. What was it again? Like Mr. Robinson said
Hmm.
something. It's like, can you please say again how someone said that my daughter like was the best looking girl in the whole place?
The
Can you
most
please just
beautiful of
repeat
them
this
all.
for everybody to hear?
Yeah.
And it's very clear that she's the type of character that will very clearly pretend something in like which is very clearly within the manners and the behavior that is used in the time, right?
Hmm. Yes.
But still be extremely transparent about
Totally.
everything, her opinions and her intentions, and
Yeah.
clearly is
She
something that
she
is part of her own opinion of herself. Like her
she's
children are an extension of her opinion of herself, right?
she's very open and doesn't shy from showing more maybe than what's expected from her. She just doesn't care clearly,
Doesn't realize that she's doing it,
or
you
doesn't
know
realize. Yeah, maybe.
which is
Hmm.
kind of probably where the whole this person not being very bright thing comes from, you know.
Yeah, probably. Okay, let's continue. I'm on the correct one. Yeah, I finished lips. Okay. Are you quite sure, ma'am? Is not there a little mistake? Said Jane. I certainly saw Mr. Darcy speaking to her. Aye, because she asked him at last how he liked Netherfield, and he could not help answering her. But she said he seemed very angry at being spoke to. Yeah, maybe.
Well,
Uh,
given the idea of people there, I
mhm.
wonder, like, I wish I had more knowledge of how things were in the time,
Yeah.
because in general he's clearly perceived as someone who is quite high in society, right? Like, and he's also a man, right?
Of
So
course.
it's just a random lady talking to him, but
Hmm.
she's also older than him. So I imagine that also has some weight.
Yeah,
But
there
this is
has
a
to be
public
some.
assembly where you don't know who is talking to you and who says that they are your rank and should be talking to you, right? It's kind of like an odd thing. And he probably wouldn't
Maybe.
like being spoken to by a lady who has not been introduced to him,
Okay. Yeah.
right?
Well, I think I you know more than me about this time, so I'm
I mean,
even I'm
what I know is
even
also very
more
limited.
more confused about some things. But I'm thinking now that maybe we should watch a couple of documentaries about the time, just
I mean,
to
I mean,
ground
I,
ourselves better. At
I get
least
to say, like,
myself,
of course, that would probably be advisable. Was I
just
too
to
eager there? I'm sorry.
just to understand better what we're uh, reading
Yeah.
about. I mean, about the what he was accustomed at the time.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Miss Bingley told me, said Jane, that he never speaks much unless among his intimate acquaintance. With them, he is remarkably agreeable. See, that's where you might be right about being shy. I do not believe a word of it, my dear. If he had been so very agreeable, he would have talked to Mrs. Long, but I can guess how it was. Everybody says that he's eat up with pride, and I dare say he had heard somehow that Mrs. Long does not keep a carriage and had to come to the ball in a chase,
Chase.
a hack chase. Okay. I do not mind his not talking to Mrs. Long, said Miss Lucas, but I wish he had danced with Eliza. Another time, Lizzie, said her mother, I would not dance with him if I were you. I believe, Ma'am, I may safely promise you never to dance with him. His pride, said Miss Lucas, does not offend me so much as pride often does, because there is an excuse for it. One cannot wonder that so very fine a young man, with family, fortune, everything in his favor, should think highly of himself. If I may so express it, he has a right to be proud.
Well,
Okay,
it's kind of like I know he's entitled, but I think he's entitled to be entitled, kind
yeah,
of thing.
that's what. That's basically it. I
I mean,
don't
I
think
agree
I.
that is a reason for his entitlement. That his surroundings
Yeah,
could
of
have
course, there's a reason.
taken, like, everybody lives in the bubble that they live,
Hmm.
right? So it's understandable that people will have the opinion of themselves that their surrounding creates, right?
Yeah,
Like, if people are telling you you're this, then that's what you're going to probably believe when you're growing up in an environment, right?
yeah, we can see that still
Uh-huh.
in this time, so
Now that I would
it
say
makes
that
sense.
he's right,
Exactly.
it's a
That's
bit
the
more
question.
debatable, right?
That's the question. Of course, is he?
Especially when he's already a grown person and should be
Yeah,
capable of seeing a bit more of his own bubbles. Though
yeah, but
we say, but it's a difficult thing. Let's be honest.
it's difficult to look outside your own bubble, and there's people in some very high bubbles that they don't even realize
Yeah,
something else
some bubbles that
exists.
really, really don't touch the rest.
Exactly. So yeah, it makes sense that he's like that. I wouldn't defend that, but yeah,
I wouldn't say it's a right, but
exactly.
I would understand why it would happen.
Hmm. That is very true, replied Elizabeth, and I could easily forgive his pride if he had not mortified mine. Pride, observed Mary.
That's the sentence that we have.
Yeah,
Do you
that's it.
remember that we
Yes, of
did,
course.
like, the one that we did in the image? For
Yeah,
me, this is
I like
what,
that
yeah.
sentence very much.
Like, when I first read this book, this is one of the things that kind of made me like this writer the most,
Hmm.
because she's also very self-aware.
Yeah, clearly.
Like, the main character has an opinion about people and the situation and things, but she's smart, so she has her opinions about others and the way that they behave and the ridiculousness of the world, but at the same time she realizes that she's suffering from this ego that is part of all of us, kind of
Hmm.
thing.
Yes,
So I really like that sentence. Like
it's very
I
good.
wouldn't have such a problem with his pride if he had no mortified mind. And it's
It
a
is
very
very
true,
good.
very
Yes.
true statement.
Pride, observed Mary, who picked herself upon the solidity of her reflections, is a very common failing, I believe. By all that I have ever read, I am convinced that it is very common indeed, that human nature is particularly prone to it, and that there are very few of us who do not cherish a feeling of self complacency on the score of some quality or other, real or imaginary. Vanity and pride are different things, though the words are often used synonymously. A person may be proud without being vain. Pride relates more to our opinion of ourselves, vanity to what we would have others think of us. That is very good too. I
Yeah.
I like that explanation, and it summarizes very well human nature in general, no matter what time we are
I think
living in.
the like the expression at the beginning when it says pride of Sir Mary, who picked herself upon the solidity of her reflection. It's kind of like a little bit of a mockery of her and the
Hmm.
way that she thinks and acts, is because it's kind of the idea of this being a character that likes to, like sound smart kind of
Yeah,
thing, right?
right.
So I think she's right. I think she's also being a bit of a dictionary in a way, right? So I think that's kind of what they're mocking at the same time,
Hmm.
right?
But still saying something that is very
Not
true.
incorrect. Yes.
If I were as rich as Mr. Darcy, cried a young Lucas, who came with his sisters, I should not care how proud I was. I would keep a pack of foxhounds and drink a bottle of wine every day. Then you would drink a great deal more than you ought, said Mrs. Bennet, and if I were to see you at it, I should take away your bottle directly. The boy protested that she should not. She continued to declare that she would, and the argument ended only with the visit.
It's very funny because he is a child and she's directly arguing with him.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, that way of thinking is like the way of thinking of a lot of people, regardless of their age.
Hmm.
And it's a very childish way to think, of course, like a very not related to how people live in society. Because I mean, you just need to work with others. It's a community, you know. And then
True.
the mother is just arguing in this,
Like, yeah, in this
you know,
imaginary situation.
it's like the busybody person that is like just going to stubbornly argue with a child,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Hmm.
Chapter 6. The ladies of Longbourn soon waited on those of Netherfield. The visit was returned in due form. Miss Bennet's pleasing manners grew on the goodwill of Mrs. Hurst and Miss Bingley, and though the mother was found to be intolerable, and the younger sister not worth speaking to, a wish of being better acquainted with them was expressed towards the two eldest. By Jane, this attention was received with the greatest pleasure, but Elizabeth still saw superciliousness in their treatment of everybody, hardly excepting even her sister, and could not like them, though their kindness to Jane, such as it was, had value, um, as arising in all probability from the influence of their brother's admiration. It was generally evident, whenever they met, that he did admire her. And to her, it was equally evident that Jane was yielding to the preference which she had begun to entertain for him from the start, from the first, and was in a way to be very much in love. But she considered with pleasure that it was not likely to be discovered by the world in general, since Jane, united with great strength of feeling and a composure of temper, and a uniform cheerfulness of manner which would guard her from the suspicions of the impertinent. She mentioned this to her friend Miss Lucas. It may perhaps be pleasant, replied Charlotte, to be able to impose on the public in such a case, but it is sometimes a disadvantage to be so very guarded. If a woman conceals her affection with the same skill from the object of it, she may lose the opportunity of fixing him, and it will then be but poor consolation to believe the world equally in the dark. There is so much of gratitude or vanity in almost every attachment that it is not safe to leave any to itself. We can begin freely. A slight preference is natural enough, but there are very few of us who have a heart enough to be really in love without encouragement. In cases out of 10, a woman had better show more affection than she feels. Bingley likes your sister, undoubtedly, but he may never do more than like her if she does not help him on.
Hmm.
What's your opinion on that?
I Again, I see things that are still prevalent in our time.
Yeah.
But again, as back to what we were saying earlier, is the way they were expected to act and to be publicly feels like it was very rigid and very what's the word? And
I think in part this is something that is just in general interactions with people. Most people don't want other people to realize when you like someone until you're kind of ready for that, right? And I think it makes sense what she's saying from the context of their time. The fact that basically women needed to marry, right? So she's kind of saying like, well, if she doesn't do something, she's never gonna get him, kind of thing, right? But at the same time, it sounds kind of really manipulative. To say like you should
I was going to say
pretend to feel more than you actually feel, so that you can assure that this person falls in love with you.
That's something I was going to say, that based on how rigid and how the expectations were so high for women at the time, it kind of makes sense that they had to learn how to be manipulative in many cases, because they needed to be married at a certain age and they couldn't miss the opportunity when it presented. So in this case,
like from a survival point of view,
exactly.
But if you are not in a survival situation like these women are,
not survival, but
theory.
But there's anyway the expectation that they should be married at a certain age, and otherwise they won't be as valuable to society.
I think what I mean to say is more like I would be more okay with it if we're talking about a person who is destitute and her family is destitute and she needs to manage a situation, and that's basically marrying is the only choice she has, or she's absolutely fucked.
Yeah.
There, I understand that more than, for example, in just a social pariah situation, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm just saying that I understand why it was like that. Though I think it's
like I couldn't
not
be
a
more
good thing,
understanding in that point. But at the same time, for me, it would be a very hard thing to just, because it would just feel very disingenuous. And
I agree with that.
In, like, let's say something disingenuous in a very vulnerable part of people, kind of thing. And that it would be very harsh for me if I were the one in that situation, right? What a frightening thought, no?
Very much. Like, I think we mentioned this on the previous session, and I like the idea of the the time basically because of uh,
Like the
aesthetic
romantic
reasons,
perspective of it, yeah.
but not how society worked,
Like not the reality of it.
not the reality of it exactly. Because yeah, it's scary. A lot of things are very scary if you think about them. How
Most of
people
them, really.
had to act and what it was expected of them, and especially women. It was it was kind of survival mode
Always.
always. Yeah,
Well, unless you were from a very, very rich
and even then it could
family, and like, I
easily,
mean, it's not like what I mean to say is it's not survival, but it doesn't mean that you don't have problems, right?
of course.
Survival is more like
Yeah.
you're literally like to survive,
Hmm.
but no life is without problems, right? If you were very rich, you were going
Yeah,
to
of
have
course. There's going to
fortune
be.
hunters all over the place, people trying to, you know, relieve you of your fortune and
Hmm.
take advantage of you in any way they want and things like
Yes,
that. So there's always things, but I meant uh, a lot of women were in very precarious situation just because of being women,
just yeah,
which was pretty shitty.
exactly.
Uh, okay, what was I? Yeah, but she does help him on as much as her nature will allow. If I can perceive her regard for him, he must be a simpleton indeed not to discover it too. Remember, Eliza, that he does not know Jane's disposition as you do. Yeah, didn't they just meet?
Of course.
And they also don't get to talk a lot. But if a woman is partial to a man, does and does not endeavor to conceal it, he must find it out. Perhaps he must, if he sees enough of her. But though Bingley and Jane meet tolerably often, it is never for many hours together. And as they always see each other in large mixed parties, it is impossible that every moment should be employed in conversing together. Jane should therefore make the most of every half hour in which she can command his attention. When she is secure of him, there will be leisure for falling in love as much as she chooses.
See, that's part of what I was saying is the way things
Yeah,
work and the way they were supposed to act and do things and feel, because even feelings had to be like
measured
planned and measured
by
in
your circumstances.
exactly.
Yeah, I remember when I first read this and reading this conversation, in my opinion about Charlotte was really poor,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because when I first read this, I was very young, right? And so I didn't have any sort of conscious of the idea of why a woman would find herself um, concerned about her circumstances later on, right?
Yeah. Right.
So I kind of I don't have a different opinion. Like I don't agree with Charlotte now, but I kind of understand more of where she's coming from.
Yeah.
Like I don't
That's
agree with her, but I it's not so black and white, let's say, as it was when I
exactly
was younger.
exactly
Because
that's what I'm coming from.
I guess
I don't
when you're
agree,
older,
but
you kind of realize that life is very much not as ideal as you would think of
of
it
course, yes,
initially. It's not about the good and evil that you are, you know, taught
is never
or
black and
anything
white.
like that.
Yeah.
And also I realize more now that I am reading these being older that this is a friendship between, well, they haven't said anything, I think, at this point. I don't remember. But they did mention how old Charlotte is. And Charlotte is 27.
Hmm.
And Elizabeth is much younger than that. So that is a very, like, you can tell, like, for me, like, I can see the difference now in terms of the perspectives. When I was younger,
Yeah.
for me, they were just very equal in many ways, right?
Now they're not. They don't look like that now.
No. And I imagine they weren't for Charlotte, right? They probably were for Elizabeth, because
Yeah.
she wouldn't see her friend being 27 as like such a big deal because she's not. But Charlotte is in that point, which is a 27-year-old
Yeah. Is
single woman in that time. So she does not
It's a
consider
very
herself the same as Elizabeth,
it's a very different
right?
perspective for the older one,
Exactly.
and taking into account what you just said, because at that time, being 27 and still single was a problem. So
Hmm.
yeah, I get it. As you said, I don't agree, but I get it. I understand.
Mm. Your plan is a good one, replied Elizabeth, where nothing is in question but the desire of being well married. And if I were determined to get a rich husband, or any husband, I dare say that I should adopt it. But these are not Jane's feelings. She's not acting by design. As yet, she cannot even be certain of the degree of her own regard, nor of its reasonableness. She has known him only a fortnight. This is also,
Mm,
you know,
yeah.
she danced 4 dances with him at Meryton. She saw him one morning at his own house and has since dined in company with him 4 times. This is not quite enough to make her understand his character.
I agree with that.
Not as you represent it. Had she merely dined with him, she might not have discovered whether he had. She might only have discovered whether he had a good appetite. But you must remember that 4 evenings have been also spent together, and 4 evenings may do a great deal. It's true. I mean, I think time is not a fixed concept in terms of people's interactions, but
Exactly.
it is very little time. It's just this
Yeah, like
puts the two women in very specific positions. We have Elizabeth talking about, like, my life is not about trying to find a husband, or any husband or rich husband, and neither is Jane. She's not thinking of that, and it makes sense that they wouldn't be, right?
yes,
And then there is Charlotte, who is clearly not there, right?
yeah.
Also,
She,
time is very little, but people used to marry with
after
much
meeting once,
little of an acquaintance at
yeah,
that time. And also, there are times when you meet someone for very long, and this doesn't mean that you know them. So
true. Yeah, that doesn't really matter that much.
it matters. It's just not
But
the
it
say all do all.
exactly is not the same for everyone and every case. Is going to be very context dependent.
Mhm. Yes, these 4 evenings have enabled them to ascertain that they both like Vaunt An better than Commerce. I think those are games. But with respect to any other leading characteristics, I do not imagine that much has been unfolded. I don't know what that is. Is that what is that?
Yeah,
Can
what
you
you're
search?
talking about?
Because I'm very curious. It
Vingt
says
on or
están hablando de
Bantan?
juegos, no, como
I don't
21.
know.
21, e-commerce. Pues es por eso es que yo pensé, Vantan.
Let's see.
Juegos de cartas, ¿o qué?
Vingt yeah. French, Vingt on, I think it's
Debe ser
pronounced.
Blackjack.
And
¿Cierto?
in Spanish is 21, 21. So yeah, there must be card games, I assume.
I imagine. But with respect to any other leading characteristics, I do not imagine that much has been unfolded. Well, said Charlotte, I wish Jane success with all my heart. And if she were married to him tomorrow, I should think she had as good a chance of happiness as if she were to be studying his character for a 12 month.
Hmm.
Happiness in marriage is entirely a matter of chance. If the disposition of the parties are ever so well known to each other or ever so similar beforehand, it does not advance their felicity in the least. They always continue to grow sufficiently, unlike afterwards, to have their share of vexation. And it is better to know as little as possible of the defects of the person with whom you are to pass your life.
That's an interesting point of view.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, many people still believe that and act based on that.
And to be
So
honest, it feels really different reading these now than it did then, right? Like now, it sounds a lot like bitterness,
mm,
like cynicism,
yeah,
So
yeah,
it
it's a bit
looks like a
of
bad experience
mhm.
to me now, which is not what I felt before. Before, it felt more like she was just being flippant about emotion, you know?
Yeah. I mean, to me, it does sound like there's some cynicism in the way she's talking about this.
Yeah. I'm quite surprised at how different my opinion is of the characters
Mm.
now reading them, because I have read this book many times in a different times of my life. But I think this is the longest that it's been since I read the whole thing, you know, from to like when I read it the last time when I was much younger,
Yeah.
you know. So I'm quite in analyzing it and such. So I'm kind of really surprised at how different it feels.
Mm. Yeah, I'm thinking probably I would have thought or felt something different with the characters and the story overall if I was doing this on my own, just reading the book like
Hmm.
in a more
Yeah,
normal way. And since I started reading the book just after seeing movie and or a series, and coming to the book just in this instance with you and analyzing and talking about it is completely different. I'm sure it will be a completely different experience on my own. So yeah, I and also what you say about the age in which you read something, it
I think it affects a lot.
completely changes how you understand and see things. I want to reread everything I read before 15 and see how I feel about that.
That's what I was thinking. You make me laugh, Charlotte, but it's not sound. You know it is not sound, and that you would never act in this way yourself. Occupied in observing Mr. Bingley's attention to her sister, Elizabeth was far from suspecting that she was herself becoming an object of some interest in the eyes of his friend, Mr. Darcy, who had first scarcely allowed her to be pretty. He had looked at her without admiration at the ball, and when they next met, he looked at her only to criticize. But no sooner had he made it clear to himself and his friends that she had hardly a good feature in her face than he began to find it was rendered uncommonly intelligent by the beautiful expression in her dark eyes. This to this discovery succeeded some other equally mortifying, though he had detected with a critical eye more than one failure of the perfect symmetry in her form. He was forced to acknowledge her figure to be light and pleasing, and in spite of his asserting that her manners were not those of a fashionable world, he was caught by their easy playfulness. Of this she was perfectly unaware. To her, he was only the man who made himself agreeable nowhere and who had not thought of her handsome enough to dance with. I like this showing of their perspectives,
Hmm.
you know. He began to wish to know her more of her, and as a step towards conversing with her himself, attended to her conversation with others. His doing so drew her notice. It was at Sir William Lucas's, where a large party were assembled. "What does Mr. Darcy mean," said she to Charlotte, "by listening into my conversations with Colonel Foster? That is a question which Mr. Darcy only can answer. But if he does it any more, I shall certainly let him know that I see what he is about. He has a very satirical eye, and if I do not begin by being impertinent myself, I shall soon grow afraid of him." On his approaching them soon afterwards, though without seeming to have any intention of speaking, Miss Lucas defied her friend to mention such a subject to him, which immediately provoking Elizabeth to do it, she turned to him and said, "Did you not think, Mr. Darcy, that I expressed myself uncommonly well just now when I was teasing Colonel Foster to give us a ball at Meryton?" With great energy, but it is a subject which always makes a lady energetic. "You are severe on us. It will be her turn soon to be teased," said Miss Lucas. "I am going to open the instrument, Eliza, and you know what follows." I kind of like Charlotte more in this time that I'm reading. I mean, I don't agree with her, but I kind of get her. Like she looks a lot more like an older sister now, in my perspective. "You're a very strange creature by way of a friend, always wanting me to play and sing before anybody and everybody. If my vanity had taken a musical turn, you would have been invaluable. But as it is, I would really rather not sit down before those who must be in the habit of hearing the very best performers." On Miss Lucas persevering, however, she added, "Very well. If it must be so, it must." And gravely glancing at Mr. Darcy, "There's a very fine old saying, which everybody here is of course familiar with. Keep your breath to cool your porridge. And I shall keep mine to swell my song." Her performance was pleasing, though by no means capital. After a song or two, and before she could reply to the entries of several that she should sing again, she was eagerly succeeded at the instrument by her sister Mary, who, having, in consequence of being the only plain one in the family, worked hard for knowledge and accomplishments, was always impatient for display. Mary, it kind of makes me sad, you know.
Yeah.
For me, Mary was always kind of sad because she was trying so hard, you know. And such an expression is just cruel because clearly these are the values that these women had in this
Exactly.
world. Like basically, they had to gain these accomplishments, like learn how to play the pianoforte and learn how to
Mhm.
like embroider and paint watercolors. And you know, when they were in meetings, like people after dinner or things like that, women would play and sing, you know, and that was expected of them. They
Yeah.
were part of the entertainment, and this is also part, like kind of the parade of look, you should have me in your house decorating the rest of your house, like your paintings, you know,
Yeah, but see, that's what I
which is so
meant.
sad.
That's what I meant earlier when I said that that was some sort of survival mode. Like not in the term in the sense that they will die if they don't get a husband. Nothing so harsh, but it was a form of trying to
Well, it was
survive in the sense that they had to be seen all the time and they had to make very big efforts to
make a display of themselves. You mean?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of vaguely makes me think of cover letters as well, but you know,
Yeah.
there's a much more private way of doing things.
Mm, exactly.
Mary had neither genius nor taste, and though vanity had given her application, it had given her likewise a pedantic air and conceited manner, which would have injured a higher degree of excellence than she had reached. Oh, that is not
Poor
good.
thing.
Elizabeth, easy and unaffected, had been listened to with much more pleasure, though not playing half so well. And Mary, at the end of a long concerto, was glad to purchase praise and gratitude by Scotch and Irish airs. At the request of her younger sisters, who, with some of the Lucases and two or three officers, joined eagerly in dancing at one end of the room. Mr. Darcy stood near them in silent indignation at such a mode of passing the evening, to the exclusion of all conversation, and was too much engrossed by his own thoughts to perceive that Sir William Lucas was his neighbour, till Sir William thus began. What a charming amusement for young people this is, Mr. Darcy. There is nothing like dancing after all. I consider it as one of the first refinements of Polish societies. Certainly, sir. And it has the advantage of also being in vogue among the less polished societies of the world. Every savage can dance.
Mm.
Sir William only smiled. Your friend performs delightfully, he continued after a pause, on seeing Bingley join the group. And I doubt not that you are an adept in the science yourself, Mr. Darcy. You saw me dance at Meryton, I believe, sir. Yes, indeed, and received no inconsiderable pleasure from the sight. Do you often dance at St. James? St. James is the court. He's basically referring
Okay,
to, do you often dance at court events? Do you like interact with, you know, the court?
got it.
Never, sir. Do you not think it would be a proper compliment to the place? It is a compliment which I never pay to any place if I can avoid it. You have a house in town, I conclude? Mr. Darcy bowed. I had once some thought of fixing in town myself, for I am fond of superior society, but I did not feel quite certain that the air of London would agree with Lady Lucas. He paused in hope of an answer, but his companion was not disposed to make any. And Elizabeth, at that instant, moving towards them, he was struck with the notion of doing a very gallant thing and called out to her, my dear Miss Eliza, why are you not dancing? Mr. Darcy, you must allow me to present this young lady to you as a very desirable partner. You cannot refuse to dance, I am sure, when so much beauty is before you. And taking her hand, he would have given it to Mr. Darcy, who, though extremely surprised, was not unwilling to receive it, when she instantly drew back and said with some discomposure to Sir William, indeed, sir, I have not the least intention of dancing. I entreat you not to suppose that I move this way in order to beg for a partner. Mr. Darcy, with grave propriety, requested to be allowed the honor of her hand, but in vain. Elizabeth was determined, nor did Sir William at all shake her purpose by his attempt at persuasion. You excel so much in the dance, Miss Eliza, that it is cruel to deny me the happiness of seeing you. And though this gentleman dislikes the amusement in general, he can have no objection, I am sure, to oblige us for 1/2 hour. Dances were very long, like very long.
Yeah, I'm
Miss,
starting to see that.
Mr. Darcy is all politeness, said Elizabeth, smiling. He is indeed, but considering the inducement, my dear Miss Eliza, we cannot wonder at his complacence, whatever. For who would object to such a partner? Who indeed?
Yeah, I wonder.
Elizabeth looked archly and turned away. Her resistance had not injured her with the gentleman, and he was thinking of her with some complacency when thus accosted by Miss Bingley. I can guess the subject of your reverie. I should imagine not. You are considering how insupportable it would be to pass many evenings in this manner, in such society, and indeed, I am quite of your opinion. I was never more annoyed. The insipidity, and yet the noise, the nothingness, and yet the self-importance of all these people. What would I give to hear your strictures on them? Your conjecture is thoroughly wrong, I assure you. My mind was more agreeably engaged. I have been meditating on the very great pressure which a pair of fine eyes uh, in the face of a pretty woman can bestow. Miss Bingley immediately fixed her eyes on his face, and desired he would tell her what lady had the credit of inspiring such reflections. Mr. Darcy replied with great intrepidity, Miss Elizabeth Bennet.
Hmm.
Miss Elizabeth Bennet, repeated Miss Bingley. I am all astonishment. How long has she been such a favorite? And pray, when am I to wish you joy? That is exactly the question which I expected you to ask. A lady's imagination is very rapid. It jumps from admiration to love and from love to matrimony in a moment. I knew you would be wishing me joy. Nay, if you are so serious about it, I shall consider the matter as absolutely settled. You will have a charming mother in law indeed. Of course, she will be always at Pemberley with you. He listened to her with perfect indifference, while she chose to entertain herself in this manner, and as his composure convinced her that all was safe, her wit flowed along. I mean,
Okay.
this is another transparent one. Should we
Yeah.
continue? Or should we leave it there? How many have we read?
I think we should leave it here. We read 3 chapters and we're on 1 hour, 10 minutes.
Okay, but you're starting the next
So,
one.
yes, please remind me next week to continue.
Yes.
And yeah, so that's it for today.
Well, I hope you guys are enjoying the read along with the
Yeah.
conversation and join us. Uh, I know this is not exactly the normal thing that you find in YouTube. It is probably very long,
And I hope
but
some people find it enjoyable and
yeah,
continue to do this with us. And of course, for anyone who is enjoying this and likes this format, please let us know. What do you think? What would you like to see? What do you believe we should do or not do in the next one?
what you have been
So,
reading, what you think of this book.
exactly.
Reading
Your
with other people is always something fantastic, in my opinion. So,
yeah, I thought it wasn't, but I really like it now. So yeah, so let us know any
I'm
thought
glad
you
that
have.
you have let me persuade you otherwise.
I'm very glad to. Thank you.
Well, um, I hope you guys enjoy this, and we'll see you next week, I guess.
Yes. See you.
Bye
Goodbye.
bye.